I had it by the tail and it arced around and grabbed me on the back of the leg. I didn't let go of the shark and it didn't let go of me. So it was what we call a dead dog. Basically, it hung on because it was totally stressed out and was frightened, and it just hung on to the back of my leg. So I actually swam back to the boat I put my hand in the gill of the shark so it wouldn't move its head and join all the dots and take the back of my leg off. So I swam back to the research boat with the shark on my leg and got onto the duck board, and we actually had to get a screwdriver in to open the jaw to get it off my leg. And since it was there, I decided to put a radio transmitter inside it.
Richard Fitzpatrick is a renowned marine biologist who specializes in shark research. For him, this was just another day in the office.
It swam away with 4 stitches with a radio transmitter in it, and then I went and stitched myself up. So I got many more stitches than the shark. But it was interesting when getting bitten in that circumstance, and what we call dead dog, it wasn't the teeth, the cutting that hurt, it was the bite pressure. It was enormous. It was like having your leg inside a vice. There's a lot of cuts and teeth marks there, but the bruising was extensive because it was clamped onto my leg for probably about 10 minutes before we got it off. I was really surprised by the bite force and how much pain was from just the sheer pressure.
Reef sharks is a collective name given to 4 species of sharks that live in the tropical waters of Australia.
So you got white tips, grey reefs, black tips and silver tips. And essentially they're out there doing their thing all the time, looking for prey and making baby sharks. The biggest of the reef sharks is the silver tip, and they can get almost 3 meters long. And that's a big, impressive shark, particularly when they come in on a feeding event.
The most common are the gray reefs and the white tips. They grow to about 1.6 meters long and occur in quite large numbers. The smallest are the black tips at under 1.5 meters. Reef sharks are viviparous, meaning they give birth to live young which develop inside the body. Depending on the type of shark, they can have a litter of up to about 10 pups, although less is more common.
The different species of reef sharks are using the different parts of the reef in different ways. And this is actually the research we're doing at the moment.
Richard and his team are tracking the sharks by putting data loggers inside the animals, but first they have to catch them. Richard has developed a unique lasso system to grab the sharks, which once around their tail, causes the shark to become quite placid. This shark rodeo lessens the trauma to the shark and makes research considerably easier.
So the grey reef sharks are working the reef edges, and they're really most active for hunting at dawn and dusk. So when we're transitioning from nocturnal to diurnal animals, they're zipping around hunting. The white-tip reef shark is a specialist nocturnal feeder. It'll spend the whole day sitting on the seafloor, just sitting there pumping water in through its gills. But as soon as the sun sets, their behaviour changes. It's really like a Jekyll and Hyde switch. And they're zipping around the reef, sticking their head into every hole, again looking for a sleeping fish. They'll go into a cave, they'll go in amongst the coral. They can fold their dorsal fins down, they can walk on their pectoral fins if they need to, trying to find a sleeping fish. Once they find it, they'll grab it and just start thrashing around. And I've seen white-tip reef sharks destroy heaps of coral, trying to get a fish out of the middle of it. Then the bigger silver tips, they live out off the edge of the reef, out in the deeper water, so they're really feeding on more pelagic type fish, scooting up and down the reef. And then the little black tips, they love to live on the reef top, in the very shallow waters, and then moving around there.
Reef sharks are generally not interested in what humans are up to. If people have been bitten by these sharks, it's generally when they've been out spearfishing. The spearos aren't hunting the reef sharks, but as soon as they fire the gun and there's a struggling fish in the water, the reef sharks will be straight in for the kill.
There's been quite a few numerous bites on arms and legs from reef sharks. We've only had a few fatalities as a result, but generally, just a bite and off they go.
The sharks get quite frantic when there's blood and food in the water. Dozens of them come together, zooming around looking for an easy meal. The problem for the spearos occur when they bring the struggling fish just a little too close, and in amongst the frenzy of blood in the water, the sharks have ended up biting them.
One of the fatalities we had up here on the Great Barrier Reef a couple of years ago was from a reef shark that wasn't even particularly large, and unfortunately it came up between the guy's legs when he was trying to fend it off, and it bit him on the inside of the thigh and actually took out the femoral artery. So it wasn't even a large shark, and just bit down, released, and caused the injury.
These sharks usually only attack when you're competing with them for food, or in Richard's case, they may not have liked being grabbed. Both situations where the shark is just responding to what's going on in their environment, but they also have to keep an eye out for what's watching them.
Predators on the reef sharks are other sharks, particularly bigger ones like bull sharks and tiger sharks. And we've actually even seen big gropers eat sharks as well. We had some of our data loggers in white-tip sharks, and one day we saw some white-tip sharks sticking their head into the reef. They were feeding on a fish, and this big groper came up, looked at the fish that they were feeding inside the hole, looked at the shark, and then ate the shark. So we ended up tracking the groper. So the big gropers will eat small sharks.
In the coral sea reefs adjacent to the Great Barrier Reef, the gray reefs and the white tips are particularly abundant. And it's these sharks that are the big draw card for divers and tourists.
In the Coral Sea, there's been very little shark fishing. So you can hop in the water, no food at all, sit down on the edge of the reef and have 20 or 30 sharks swimming around you. And it's like this beautiful underwater grey ballet. You're just sitting down there watching these animals just cruising around. They don't care that you're there, and they're just doing their thing, and it's just beautiful to watch.